I knew this was my destiny. I knew
Wow.
it. It was almost like driving a car in the fog. Like I know I'm going to get there. I just don't know how I'm going to get there. And I just always had this belief that I was capable, but my fear sometimes got so loud that
Yeah.
it overshadowed things.
Bonjour, I'm Deborah, a French native teacher and a lifelong expat. In this new series, I chat with inspiring English-speaking retirees who've made the leap to France. Today, meet Christy, authentic, bold, and deeply moving. Let's dive in.
Bonjour Christy.
Bonjour Deborah, ça va?
Très bien. Et vous, comment ça va aujourd'hui?
Ça va bien.
Well, today I'm really grateful that Christy accepted to be the first person interviewed for this series of podcasts that will speak about retiring in France and the preparation, the arrival, the expectations, the up and downs. I think it's going to be very interesting. She mentioned that she watched a lot of content to get ready for this move, and often there was something a little bit missing in this picture, which was, you mentioned the emotional part of moving to a new country, maybe the cultural shock that you actually faced in your first arrival in Toulouse. So I thought that would be very interesting if we can today speak about that, among other things. But first of all, Christy, could you, as you did for me before, introduce yourself, maybe speak about your life pre-France back in the US, in California, and what led you to do the move with your husband? What was the trigger and all?
Sure, sure. Well, first, thank you for doing this. I think this is a really valuable element to this idea of moving to another country, not just France, but for anybody who's looking to move to another country. It's a big deal. It's not something small. And I think, as you said, that there's a lot of a very really great content out there on the technical aspects of moving, like how to get a visa, how to have your things shipped over, how to find an apartment, all of those really practical things that you need. But there is a part of it that I think that isn't getting as much discussion, which is around the emotional part. And I realize that that's different for everybody, and everyone's going to have a very different experience of entering into that world. But just for a little bit of background, I'm retired. I retired at a couple of years ago in 2023, kind of an early retirement, just from corporate burnout from 40 plus years in corporate America, and I was just ready to be done. My
You
husband,
do look really useful, so
oh,
that's
do I?
why I
Well,
thought,
early
oh,
retirement was
you look
good.
younger than the regular retirement age.
Yes, well, thank you for that. I'm just a couple of years under the retirement age, but my husband wanted to wait until he turned 65 to retire. So we had a little bit of time, and during that time, and really the whole idea of France came to us. I mean, if I think about it, it started with the pandemic when we were kind of homebound for quite a bit, and we love to travel. But we raised between us, second marriage for both of us, but we raised, 4 kids, got them educated, and we're starting over really when we got together. So, we love traveling, but we weren't able to do as much extensive traveling in Europe as we wanted to. So we thought, during the pandemic, let's dream big, and what do we want for retirement, which was a few years away.
I
So
like the dream big part. Like
yeah,
let's think without limitation. Let's think in
exactly.
big.
Exactly. So we watched every episode of House Hunters International. We watched every episode of Mediterranean Life because we knew that, we love the southern part of Europe. And so from there, we started to just like little nuggets of, could we do this? Like, is this something that we want to do? And then when I retired in 2023, towards the end of that year, I needed something to do because I'm a pretty resourceful person, and I like to be busy. So my husband continued working, and I started researching different countries in Europe. And to be honest, everybody talks about Spain and Portugal, and we looked at that, and it just wasn't our vibe. It just, which I know for a lot of people, they love it. Our kids would love to move to Spain or Portugal, and that would be
I
great for
guess the
them.
sun is an element that might attract people, and the cost of life, it's a
And the
bit
cost of
cheaper,
life,
maybe.
exactly.
Yeah.
And the quality of life too. But for us, I think we just wanted something a little different. And then literally stumbled onto a video one day on YouTube where they were talking about the reciprocal tax agreement between the United States and
Just a side note, maybe if you remember the video after, we can put them as a link.
as a
That could
link. Sure.
be a good
Yeah.
resource. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a couple years ago, but I'll have to go back and
Okay.
find it.
No
But
worries.
I pulled on that thread a little bit and I started looking at it, and it's a very favorable agreement, where basically as a retired person, your income is not double taxed in France. So you always have to pay your United States tax as long as you're a citizen there. But when you come to France, they give you credit for that and they don't tax you beyond that. Now, if you have French income or something like that, I mean, I'm no tax expert, but for us in our particular circumstance, we perked up when we heard that, because it was like, well, that might be doable. And from there, we just continued researching, watching YouTube videos, talking to people, going onto Facebook, and more, it just became very evident to us that
Wow.
France was where we wanted to be. And then the dream really exploded, and it was like, oh, wow, like we can really do this. This is not just let's go visit for a little bit. We could actually make this happen. Then it became, are we those kind of people who would do this? Are we courageous enough to leave our kids behind? And our kids are all grown and have partners and lives and careers, and they're very happy where they are. That was a huge element. And we don't have any grandchildren yet. And our parents are gone. So like the window was very open for us to, if we ever wanted to do this, this would be the time to do it. So it morphed over time into, laying around during the pandemic, eating popcorn, going, oh, it's cool, to, oh my gosh, like we're really doing this. And so
Yeah.
we took a couple of exploratory trips to Nice, and
So that was after the pandemic. You went on
yes,
you say exploring trip. I heard scouting trip before.
scouting trip, yeah, with
Yeah.
exploratory
I
trip.
like those terms. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I'm going to explore where I could live.
Yeah. And when you're trapped in, like I was in corporate America for so many years, that you just don't, you get a 2-week vacation or a 3-week vacation, and then you go, 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 go. And then you're coming home to your bed, your car, your, safety zone, your everything. To actually make the move is a very different psychological place that you have to go, because at the end of the day, I'm not going home to my bed. I'm not going home to the comforts that I have around me. And you really have to prepare. I mean, that's been one of the challenges, is just really figuring out who I am and what am I capable of, and how far and how hard am I willing to push myself to do something different after kind of living the American dream and, having children and buying a home and, really being entrenched in that world, to just letting all of that go and creating a new life in another country where,
Yeah.
everything is different.
When did you realize that? When did you come to the realization that this move would involve this kind of uncomfortable state within you? Was it during your first scouting trip that you started taking the measure of the leaving the comfort zone?
No, the first trip was just all
Okay.
sunshine and roses
Honeymoon.
and that. We came back because our oldest daughter got married in Barcelona last September.
Okay.
So we figured,
Nice.
it was beautiful. And so we thought, let's just tack on some time after the wedding and come back and make sure this is really what we want to do. And that's when I changed my filter a little bit. My husband is just, this is a dream that he's had all of his life, and he's lived all around the world. So this is a very different transition for him than it is for me, where I come from in Northern California, I'm 5th generation there. So my family is very entrenched, and nobody in my family, I don't even know that anyone in my immediate family has been to Europe except for my kids, my daughter. So to them, it's such a crazy idea. Like, why would you do that? But for us, I think it was a second trip for me. I started looking at it differently, and it was hard. I mean, it was like, okay, the weather isn't always perfect in the south of France. Sometimes there are hurricanes, and sometimes it's muggy and hot, and sometimes it's raining. And so it's not the picture perfect that we talked about yesterday, where you're riding a bike with a beret and a striped shirt and a baguette hanging out of your basket, right? That was interesting to observe it from a different perspective. And I will say, we came back from there and I was a little uncertain. I was like, I don't know if I can do this.
How long was the second trip in France? How long
A
did you
month.
stay? A month. So
A
it was
month.
a bit longer than the first
Yes.
trip?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's why as well you got more time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it so, and looking at it from a different perspective, because when you're on vacation, like I said, it's the excitement of planning your vacation, and we're going to see this and this and this and this, and you're go, go, go. And then in the back of your mind, even if it's subconscious, that you're going to go back to your old life where there's safety and security and all of the comforts of home and your favorite chair and your pets if you have them, and your friends. It's those kinds of things where it's a very different perspective than just coming for vacation.
How long after the going back did you decide to actually take the leap and move to France?
I think it was almost immediate, but for moi, with reservations. And it was one of those things where, I don't know if you've ever been on a high dive. Like, if you go to a public swimming pool, they have a high dive. So, I was at the top of the ladder and I had to make the decision. I'm either going to go out and I'm going to jump in the pool, or the 12 people behind me, I'm going to have to make them get off the ladder so that I could. And I was just like, I knew it was from a kind of a spiritual standpoint. I knew this was my destiny. I knew it. It was almost like driving a car in the fog. Like, I know I'm going to get there. I just don't know how I'm going to get there. And I just always had this belief that I was capable, but my fear sometimes got so loud that it overshadowed things. And
that's where it's good to dissociate intuition, maybe like a gut feeling, and with the mental talk, the monkey mind, or like those fear, or maybe also the background, as you say, if you come from a family where nobody move, like you are all settled, all in your comfort zone, maybe there is some materialistic expectation, like, as you said, like you've got your house, you've got your furniture, your car, and like in the end you have to give up on all of that, maybe also lose a bit of money, when you sell things secondhand, and then and then this gut feeling also probably inspired by your husband, because in the end, when we live with someone and spend 100% of our time with a person, for sure we absorb the vibe, and we become in a way a little bit the person we spend the most time with. So maybe it's also.
And so that's a good point. And choose your partner wisely. Like, I aspire to be more like him, because he's very calm, cool, and collected. And this is just, I've never seen him so happy and blissful. Like he's out grocery shopping right now, which he never did when we were back home, but he takes his trolley and it's like the highlight of his day. And I'm like, wow, this is a whole new person. And I love this person,
because shopping is not the same in the US and in France, no? Like to go to the small fromager, boulangerie, boucherie. We call it, there is a beautiful word for it. We call all of that commerce de bouche. Like le fromager, le boucher, le boulanger, because they sell food. We call it like mouse trade or mouse shop.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's not that common, but I like the term commerce de bouche. I think France, or even maybe Spain or Italy at some extent, I guess I think they have more of those than in the US, where the supermarkets, les supermarchés are quite predominant.
So yeah, it's that part has been very interesting, And so the moment would say, I knew that it was almost like the decision was made internally, and then the mental part of me had to catch up with it, if that makes any sense. Like And then I just decided to go with it. And so I immediately started working on getting stuff together for our visas. And even though there were moments of fear and doubt and terror and, oh my gosh, what are we doing? I went with it anyway. I just literally just went with it because in the back of my mind, you always have to look at the alternative, right? Like, I can do this. It's going to be hard and scary, and there may be some really cool rewards. Or in the alternative, I can also stay here and watch the videos on TV and talk, and that would have been okay too. Like if I had just said, I'm too scared right now, I can't do it, that would have been okay. We would have made our life in the United States as retirees. We wouldn't do as much traveling because it's much more expensive to live in the United States, but we would have made that work. So it wasn't like I have to or else. It
Yeah.
was really more like there's this option, which is going to test me and challenge me and force me to grow and change in ways that I can't even imagine. Or I can stay in my comfort zone and make that work too. And I just didn't like that alternative for us.
It's good that the decision come from a place of choice and freedom rather than that's my only way to live
Yes.
because I can't live anymore in the US, but I don't feel comfortable doing it. It's good that
Right.
it comes from a place of I worked really hard. I have different life ahead of me, and I know it's scary, but I will choose with this space of freedom. Like, and it's fantastic to have choice in life. It's like, I imagine like we have to be really grateful because not all
Absolutely.
of us have all of those options. And
Exactly. Exactly. And so from that perspective, I think realizing what a gift it was for us to have that option, financially speaking, and to have the support of our children. Like, we talked to all of them and they were all super excited, almost a little, almost a little too excited, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, you guys are really cool with this. So, but it
no,
was
but they
really,
must have been really happy for
yes,
you because it's exciting, like because retirement. I mean, when you are healthy and like still curious and like
yes,
such a beautiful stage, especially in the US where the work ethic is so hard. You know that in France we say that there is a saying like on travaille pour vivre. So we work to
right, to
live
live,
and we
yes,
don't work
live
to
to work,
live. Uh,
yes.
live to work. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes. It's a different
yeah,
mindset in the United States. It's literally like 12-hour days are not uncommon, when you have a thriving career. And, the burnout is real. And I think I've witnessed that just being here in France. We've been here for 3 months now, and I've 3 months today, actually.
oh,
Yeah, and I've really witnessed that. And in some ways, it's a little bit annoying because we had to go to the post office yesterday, and we happened to go during their lunch hour, and I thought, well, that's inconvenient. And then I thought, oh, my husband was like, let's go have a coffee.
nice.
So we went and we sat and we had a coffee, and then it was like, oh, now it's time to go back to the post office. I'm like, so you get used to
Well,
it.
in
And
Spain, it would have been maybe worse because it's like such a big break. They have like the siesta, the
oh,
daily nap,
yes, yes.
and yeah. So yeah, I
Well,
guess
this
it's
was an
like
hour and a half, and we just happened to
yeah,
get there about 20 minutes before they were reopened. But, it's that kind of mindset, and you don't have that in the United States at all. And so I think, we've noticed that, and just already I can feel how much more relaxed I am being here. And of course, we're retired, but it's a big decision, and it's not for everybody. And I honor that too. I mean, a lot of people just like you were telling me earlier, come for 6 months and then go back for 6 months. And there are a multitude of reasons why people do that. And I would never judge anybody's ideas or reasons for doing what they do in terms of making this kind of a move. There's no one path. It's going to be different for everybody based on their circumstances. And as I
yeah.
mentioned, our parents are gone, our kids are grown and educated. All the things we wanted to do with them, for them, is done. And so
Yeah,
looking
you
out,
had all the conditions
yes.
also
So
because
for us,
sometimes it's not flowing. It's like there is a bit of technicalities that,
right.
yeah,
And so
but
timing is everything. I mean, for us,
yeah,
we just felt like this window flew open, and convincing my husband to not work until he was 67 or 68, it was like, when is enough enough? Like, he was getting tired, I could tell. And, we just decided, let's go for it. So,
How soon after your retirement did you move to France?
well, so for me, I retired in 2023, and then I took
Okay.
on France as a full-time career, and I just immersed myself in research, and it was really fun. It was like finally a project for me, like a project that I'm going to directly benefit from, not the corporation that I'm working for. For him, it's kind of funny because he retired on, I think, January 10th.
If-
He had 10 days in between when he retired and when we were on a plane.
From this year, so it was a
Yes, so
few
from
months
this year,
ago.
yeah.
Okay,
So
wow.
he went and visited his daughters in LA, and as soon as he got back, 2 days later, we were on a plane. So, I mean, I had us
No
up and
wonder he's living his best life now. It's like also like a new
yeah,
thing for him, new chapter, new country.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
So it was pretty exciting, and and scary, and when you have that kind of momentum, when you're going go go, and now you know what you're going to do, you just have to execute on getting the visa, and getting your suitcases and getting all of your things in line, securing 3 months worth of housing and this and that, and determining where you want to live, all of those things. Once that train is moving, it's very hard to slow it down or stop it.
Yeah.
So once we got here, that's when we were able to kind of stop and take stock of what we were doing.
I wanted to ask you something just to go back a little bit. You mentioned like this momentum, but before you said that there is a moment where you feel that there is those mental resistance, like those fears that comes to parasite this intuition. You mentioned also that you are a resourceful person, that you make a lot of research. Is there any tools like or resources that you use to support like this project? If you want to share it with our
Yeah.
listeners.
Well, I will tell you, I talked to myself a lot. I had a lot of time by myself because my husband would go to work and I'd be at home during the day. I literally would speak ideas out loud and see how
Oh,
they
wow.
felt. Like I'm going to live in the south of France. And then I would be like, how does that feel? Or like I'm telling
Wow.
somebody, I live in the south of France, and how did that feel? Like, so having that inner dialogue with myself, well, actually it was external dialogue with the walls, kind of talking through. And then if a fear would come up, I would say, okay, well, let's look at that fear. I also do a lot of journaling. So for me,
Oh.
having that getting the mental down on paper, for me, I write, with pen and paper.
Did you
That
start doing it with this project or you were
Yeah.
doing this
No,
from before?
I had given up on, because my corporate life
Okay.
had just taken over,
Yeah.
so I will say it took a while for me to reignite that engine, because I used to journal all the time. I used to write all the time when I was younger, but then, life takes over and you don't always have time and energy. So I had to kind of reignite that battery a little bit. And so I did a lot of journaling. How do I feel? Some days I'd be like, I'm so excited, I can't stand it, and this is what it's going to look like. And then I would dream about what I wanted, and I would dream about like manifesting the perfect place and this and that. But then there were times where I'm like, I can't do this. What am I thinking? Oh my gosh, there's no way I can pull this off. So I think having a process of calming the mind, whether it's through meditation or journaling or going for a walk, I think that's really an important part of, and I think it's a part of the discussion that maybe gets lost, or maybe it's just unique to me. I don't know, but I think when you make a decision like this, it feels to the outside world like it was, oh, I made a decision like I'm going to the grocery store. It's not. Like there's a lot, and I would be interested to talk to other expats too. There's a lot, I think, psychologically that goes into,
Yeah, that's why I wanted to
yeah,
ask, like, if you had, because we also discussed in off your arrival and this
yes,
your arrival in Toulouse. So Toulouse
yes.
is in the south west of France. So can you mention it, because you talked to me about that Toulouse was not your first choice, and then you arrived there and you had this little shock. So
Yes.
yeah, if you can say a word about it.
Yeah, so we originally, it was always going to be Nice for us. We always thought, the 2 times we came, and even though I had some reservations, because I come from a rural part, I'm about 60 miles north of San Francisco in Sonoma County, which is very rural, kind of wine country, peaceful, quiet. I've lived in the suburbs for 30 plus years. And so the idea of coming into a big city was overwhelming to me. And my husband really likes the hustle bustle. I like nature and calm and peace. And so after that month that we spent in the fall, I had a lot of doubts about whether Nice was going to be the right place for me, because it's not a huge city, but it's a bigger city than what I was comfortable with. And then we realized that the housing market here is extraordinarily tense. It's very, very difficult to find an apartment for what we were looking for. And we had engaged a search company, and he was very candid with us and said at the time in October, I don't know, I can't guarantee anything for you because it's really, really tense. So based on all of that information, I panicked a little bit, and I said, okay, well, let's find somewhere else. I don't want to go where I am going to struggle to find a place, just basic housing. So we did a search, we looked at Marseille, too big. We looked at Lyon, because transportation was also a big consideration for us. We don't have a car, and in California, we can't exchange our driver's license here. So we will not be driving for the foreseeable future. And so we wanted a place that had lots of public transportation that was accessible, and a smaller city maybe. So, hierarchically, it's Paris, and then I think Lyon, Marseille, Lyon, and then Bordeaux. Well, actually, it's like Toulouse and Bordeaux. So we kind of looked at all those, and we ended up settling on Toulouse because it checked all the boxes.
So you checked the list of cities by size? That's how you came up
by
with
size
this?
And transportation, because we also wanted to be close to a major airport, because we do want to travel. And we want to make it easy for our kids to come and visit. So we had all of this very intellectual criteria, right? Very intellectual criteria. Yes, 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 yes. But when we got to Toulouse, by the way, beautiful city, absolutely beautiful. And if you've never seen the Garonne at night, it's really exquisite, But we very quickly realized that it didn't have some of the other things about Nice that we had kind of taken for granted, or maybe just overlooked, which was the international community, which we realized in going to Toulouse how important that was to us. Not just an expat American community, but we're an international family. My husband was born and raised in the Middle East. And so we've got a lot of different influences in our
Because
family.
something we haven't mentioned is like your relationship to French language at this stage. When you first arrived, you didn't speak at all.
I had
Your
a year
husband and you.
of Duolingo under my belt, and I can't honestly say I don't know that it didn't get me to A1 level. Like I was saying, it wouldn't get me into Alliance Française, which shame on me. I had the time. I should have worked hard, and I would say to anybody who's really considering this, not only just out of respect for the country that's welcoming you in, but to make the transition easier for you. Like in Toulouse, they don't speak English as much, and that's my problem, not their problem. I want to be really clear about that. I don't expect people to speak English with me. But I'm prepared with Google Translate, and I am good with sign language, trying
You're
to.
quite outgoing, so you're expressive and
Yeah, well, my husband was trying to get a screwdriver like this, this kind of stuff. So anyway, there were just a lot of things about Toulouse that are beautiful, but it just wasn't suiting us. And so we realized we miss the international community. We miss kind of the open space of the sea. And so
you have to connect with a place. And
you have to connect.
when you moved to Toulouse, it was kind of a little bit of a poker move, like you didn't know the city before, and just through Google and some pictures
and videos. We had never been there before, and I honestly, for someone like me, that was not a good choice. And it's okay. I mean, we learned from it. It's fine, but it was a bit of a culture shock. Plus, it was the end of January and it was the dead of winter. So there was that element too, which,
the sky is a bit gray.
So at the end of the day, we started thinking, okay, well, maybe, and we had a really bad experience with our long-term housing that made it really challenging and difficult. We had a phenomenal agent there, though, that we connected with. And if anyone needs a really good apartment search agent, I would highly recommend her. but we weren't finding the housing that we were looking for either. There's not a lot of remodeled modern stuff. And that's another thing that I think is important for people to really level set their expectations. Everybody knows you're not going to find, California in France, right? You sort of intellectually know that, but it's another thing altogether to walk into an apartment and go, there's no shower. Like, okay, people bathe and that's great, but that's not how, I mean, there's certain things that I was just like, I don't know that I could overcome that if that's just too far out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Really, really old.
And the comfort of the bed, sometimes when it's furnished, is not the same. Yeah, there is like those little differences.
Exactly. So we weren't finding the kind of housing we wanted. And so one afternoon, we were walking we went for a walk and we were standing on the Garonne. This was one of those kind of funny moments where I reached out to our agent in Nice and just said, has anything changed since October? Do you think we could find a place to live? And he said, I think it has. I think we could find something for you. And I said, okay. And literally within 2 hours, my husband had a car booked and, we had scheduled, I went and found, just got a month short-term stay. So we packed up and we left Toulouse and we drove the 6.5 hours across the country, which was...
This is a real adventure. It's like something to be written about. Like,
yeah,
okay, let's go.
And so we had to get a car big enough to fit all 9 of our suitcases and
your life, basically, like your life in suitcases. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was, and I looked at it, we looked at it as a grand adventure and we ended up getting, unfortunately, we requested an automatic, but we got a stick shift. And so every time we would pull up to a toll road, I'd have to remind my husband to, put the stick shift. So we made the move and we got here and even then we ran into some major problems. The person who was supposed to be searching for us for an apartment was not, and we had to get into a bit of it got kind of ugly actually. And so
the person that you called that said to you,
it was somebody who was working for him.
Okay.
And that person was not doing their job, and that person ended up, unfortunately losing their job because there were other people like us that they weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. So that added to the stress of now we had lost 2 more weeks of time not being able to find an apartment. So we had to get another short-term. So that whole thing, I will tell you, for anybody who's coming, especially to Nice, it is an extraordinarily tense market. And that was another major, in terms of challenges, highs, lows, that was probably the most difficult because as Americans, we build a credit score. Like our whole focus is if you've got a great credit score in the United States, you're going to be able to do pretty much whatever you want to do. And in here, there is no credit score. So you have to prove yourself to people. And it's so psychologically, it's hard for Americans, I think, to come to France and know it's like, I've owned a home for 30 years. Why wouldn't they rent to me? But they don't like taking tenants in that have income from other countries. It's not just Americans. It's anybody who has income from another country. You need to get garant, which is appropriate, and it's a guarantee that that if you don't make your payment, if you disappear and go back to the United States or wherever, that this insurance company will come and make the payment. A lot of landlords wouldn't take garant. They wanted us to put an entire year's worth of rent, which we weren't willing to do. Like that's just not something we were willing to do. So there's a lot of.
I think there is a law in France that in terms of the deposit that we put, I think that there is a regulation. Yeah. So maybe this is not legal.
It's not. And I said that's not legal. And they said, understood, but that's what they're requesting. So we'd have to move on. And then there was, there were just multiple episodes of disappointment. And I will say, as someone in their 60s who's lived a pretty clean life in the United States, I was not prepared for that level of rejection. And I think psychologically, it wasn't personal. It was just when we can find somebody who has a French contract and somebody that's going to be easier for us to deal with, that's who we want to go with. So it's
The
something to prepare
rejection
yourself.
came after you visited the place, when the landlord, for instance, they have maybe 5 applications and they have to choose the right person. That's where
In
you got
one case,
rejected.
yes. In one case, they said we won't accept Garant Me despite having all of our
Mm,
information. We had another really weird situation. I won't go into too much detail, but the owner of the property contacted the agency we were working with and said, "Do you have anybody who might be interested?" And they said, "Yes, yes, yes. We've got this couple. They're from the United States, etc." And we went and we met with the owner and we toured the property, and they said we would rather have somebody who can pay maybe less rent because it was in a very expensive area,
mhm.
as long as we have somebody there. And so we went and we met, we had a great time. And she was like, "I think these guys are great." It was like, it was all moving forward in this great direction. And then at the very last minute, the husband of the owner backed out and said, "No, we're not going to do it." So that hope's dashed again.
Yeah,
So any number of circumstances can happen. And anybody who's been in Nice recently knows how challenging this
yeah.
market is and how different our expectations are from the reality, like
Mhm.
where we are now.
That's good to mention. Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's something maybe you didn't, you had no idea before. Like maybe you envisioned like an easier settling down process. Mm.
Yes. And it was a little bit of, kind of maybe arrogance on our part, or just, not intentionally, but it just didn't occur to us that, like we've got a good financial situation. We have everything you need. We've got all of our paperwork. It's just we're not used to, being told no because you're from here or there or your money comes from elsewhere. It's very challenging to understand that intellectually and
Yeah.
emotionally, and to not take it as a personal rejection, because it's really not. It's just a business decision on the
Mm.
landlord's part, which they have a right to. But
Yeah.
that said, the one thing that kept me going, and it got really dark. I mean, there were times where I was like, what are we doing? Like, why are we even here? Because the weeks would go by and
Yeah.
only one
And it's
apartment.
expensive to rent
Yes.
those short-term
Yeah.
flats.
And the closer we would get to where we are now, which is, on the brink of summer, which is high season here in Nice, the harder it was getting to find
Mhm.
even anything to look at. So we ended up finding a place. We're only here for 8 months. It's a short-term rental. It's a fabulous location. We love the apartment. We love the people that put us here. So that part has been really amazing. And we just moved in 6 days ago. So
Wow.
We've
Yeah,
had we
it's
had
good
five
that, yeah.
short-term rentals before we got here, and now we're finally settling in, and it's starting to feel a little more normal.
I
But
think your
prepare.
nervous system can like just
Yes,
relax and
yes,
yeah, because it's hard when you are with all your suitcase and you are just in a temporary place. It's hard
yes,
to have this grounding feeling. Maybe for some people, like your husband, maybe he's fine because he's been moving his whole life. But
right.
I know for me it's the same because it
Hmm.
happened to me to make some bold move like that to try a city and to rent a short-term Airbnb. Meanwhile, we were house hunting and we were like fifth on the list. And like, it's like
Yeah,
sometimes I think you have to consider the luck factor.
yes,
Sometimes you just get lucky and
yes,
sometimes not. So it's just like, but yeah, you have to accept that it's, unless you have lots of money and you can afford anything, like,
yeah. Well, yes. I mean, and that's not us. I mean,
yeah,
we have a decent income, but it's not. And it is less expensive to live here by a long shot for a lot of reasons, but we come from an expensive part of California. So, it's going to be different for everybody.
yeah,
But yeah, I
exactly.
think I think just to level set expectations, as we talked about yesterday, I think what gets sold to Americans a lot through YouTube videos, and it's not a bad thing, but I think the idea of, oh, I'm going to move to France and it's going to be, sipping wine and eating cheese and, riding my bike to town. And for some people, like if they can pull that off, I mean, bravo, that's amazing. Everybody wants something maybe a little bit different. I think the reality of it is, though, I got strep throat when we got here. I was so exhausted and tired. I got really,
Hmm.
really sick. I had to go find a doctor. I had to treat it. I had to rest. I didn't want to rest. I wanted to go find a place to live, you have to go find those things. You have to find the post office. You have to, deal with stuff that you don't necessarily want to deal with. Just validating our visas was a bit of a challenge because there's, part of the form that they don't explain to you. And so I'm
Did you do all of
crowdsourcing.
that by yourself? Like
Yes.
the visa process and
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm finding that the visa process was actually in the United States was the easiest thing so far to do. And I stressed out about that, but that part was really easy. I think if anybody were looking like they have a certain amount of budget for their move, where personally what I would say is if you're in our situation, like where you're a retiree and you're just going to be using your retirement income, you're not an entrepreneur or anything where you're working. I can only speak to this category. You can do the visa on your own. It's really not that hard. Get onto Facebook, crowdsource information. A lot of the Facebook pages, expats in France, Club Camembert, there's a lot of them. They have a guide.
Camembert, I didn't know this
Oh
one.
yeah, it's wonderful. It's great. They're really great people there. But they have at the top, they have guides. So you can literally, you don't even have to ask people if you don't want
Ah,
to. You can go and they have guides for how to do these things. And
yeah.
so they're
And
really,
sometimes you can also, people forget in those groups there is like a search bar, and
yes,
often the most common question they have been asked. So you can search that and you may
yes,
find answers. And people are really friendly in those groups usually,
they
like
are.
they
They
like to
are.
share.
And
Mm.
that's been really wonderful. And the friends that I've made here have all been through one level of that resourcefulness, like going through Facebook. But figuring out how to do all of that stuff, you just have to get resourceful and don't be afraid to ask the questions. So for us, the visa part of it was easy. If I was going to spend any money or recommend it, I would say if you're in a place like Nice or Paris or somewhere where the market is really tense, Bordeaux is another very, very tense market because of their proximity now with the TGV to
To
Paris.
Paris.
So if you're going to do that,
TGV, just to say, for people who are not in
oh,
France yet, TGV is the high-speed train,
yes,
TGV. And we have TER, they are the regional trains, and they are a bit slower, maybe
yes,
a little bit less expensive. So we have
but they
like those
take longer.
two.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
sometimes there is la grève, the strike. This is also,
oh
it's
well,
not a cliché, it does
it's
happen.
true. It does happen. I think we've
Mm,
had one or two since I've been here in just in
mm,
3 months. But what I was going to say was, if you have a bucket of money, I wouldn't use it. You can handle the visa. Most people can handle the visa. Focus on paying somebody and do your research. There are a lot of rental search agents out there and obviously realtors or immobiliers. Put your money there to have somebody help you, especially if you don't speak French, because you're going to be
mm.
negotiating a contract in French. And
And
yes,
also because the one that they are used to work with American, they know your standard, as you
uh-huh,
mentioned before, like this shower bath
right,
situation, or
exactly.
I was thinking also of the kitchen, like because my partner is from New Zealand, so it's a bit the same. He likes the open plan kitchen,
Mhm.
which is not that common in Europe. Yeah,
No,
so it's
it's
good to
not.
have
Yeah.
someone that's actually hunt for those flats and like propose those kind of flats to you, I guess.
Exactly. And they can do the negotiating for you and they can help you get your internet set up and your water set up and all of those things. But I would also say there are many companies out there. Don't let anybody tell you there's only one
Yeah.
group in an area. Do your research because some people have a very heavy sales pitch and they're not, I've heard some horror stories, let me put it that way. And so just do your
Mm.
research and research relocation agencies. There may be a company in Paris that has an agent in Nice or has an
Hmm.
agent in Bordeaux. So don't let the names fool you. There are some really great, capable, competent, helpful people out there, but there's the flip side to that where you have to be careful that you're not using somebody who doesn't really have your best interest. So I would say do your research. Don't just go with the sales pitch. Really dig down and
Yeah.
look at all of the different
With
agencies.
reviews and
Yes,
feedbacks of several
exactly.
people. Well, that's a very good insight, and I'm really happy that also you now find a place, even if it's for 8 months. You speak today with a little bit, like the after storm kind
Yes.
of talk.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago would have been a whole different story.
Yeah, but it's good to hear you give us a true picture of your arrival, like the pre-move and now the arrival, how it went, the move from Toulouse to Nice, and probably in 1 year time you are going to laugh about all of that. But what I wanted to ask is that that's not what you expected. You had maybe this ideal image of the
Mhm.
move to France, and maybe it would happen like your scouting trip with ease, but it hasn't happened this way. But how do you feel today? I know it's quite soon, but do you feel like you got a little bit transformed by this experience? Do you feel
Definitely.
stronger? And are you proud of yourself for having overcome all this roller coaster and these up and downs? I imagine you must feel quite good about yourself too, that you're still there.
Yes.
And
Yeah, and I hadn't really framed it that way, but yeah, I think there's a relief in knowing that we weathered that storm. That's a good analogy. It has felt very rocky and up and down, and for someone like I said, coming from the United States where everything is somewhat predictable, if you've got your good credit score and if you've got, this much in the bank, that you're pretty much going to get what you need. And maybe that's just being spoiled after many years of this, but I do feel relieved. I feel like now I can relax a little bit, just unpacking and sorting through my clothes. And now we have one closet here between us, and it's not big. So we had to go through that whole process of, what do I really need? Do I really need, in the United States, it's just like everybody has these massive closets, and I realized I didn't wear half of the things that were in
yeah,
there. So for here, it's everything is much more intentional. So that was actually a really fun exercise to go through. And first of
I
all,
think it's basically a lot of let go. You have to let
let
go
go
of
for sure.
all all your habits, all you had. You had to deconstruct and let go all the time, no?
You do. And you know what, honestly, Deborah, that is such a really important point, I think, because when you've been in a certain lifestyle for so long, we got sucked into, I shouldn't say sucked into, we lived the American dream. You have your children, you raise them, you educate them, you buy the house, you go to Costco and you go to Target and you have all your things and you buy in bulk and all of these things. That's the lifestyle. Here, my husband, we were I forget where we were at the market the other day, and he's like, oh, let's buy like 6 of these milks. And I'm like, we don't have room for 6, even though they're shelf stable. We don't have room and we don't need them because the store is literally, the market is 5-minute walk with our trolley. It's
Different
adapted.
habits. Yeah,
Yeah.
I find a lot of French people, they like to buy only what they need for the day because
Yes.
it's just there. And also it's, in a way, it's more frugal because
Yes.
you won't eat the sweet cheese that you have in the fridge. You just
Right.
eat you bought maybe just a cut of cheese for the day that you need. And it's just different
It is.
habits.
It is. And it's so that part has been kind of fun, exploring how to do things differently like that. That part's been really fun. So we're relaxing into it now and just kind of figuring out what does a day in the life look like. It's like it, and we're realizing it can look like anything we want it to look like. And there's freedom in that. And, maybe sleeping in a little bit longer, getting up. Nasser likes to go out and walk in the morning. And for me, I just like to take my time and gather my thoughts and maybe write a little bit. And having that freedom and flexibility has been really amazing. And I will say the thing that I also learned about Nice is that it's not as overwhelming as I thought it was going to be. The public transportation here is amazing, and each neighborhood has a very distinct characteristics about it. So wherever you are, if it feels overwhelming, just give it some time to settle in. And and that's the part, it's like everyone, I feel like a lot of people are like, oh, I love it here, I would never change, I wouldn't change a thing. And yeah, it's like I would change a few things, but I'm adapting to another way of living and in
Yeah,
my 60s. And that's, I got to give myself some grace, and I give so many people who do
I
this
like the
so much
expression.
grace, because it is really hard to take on something new and make peace with it. So give
Do you
yourself
keep
grace.
journaling?
Pen,
Whoa.
as always. I
No,
write things
because
down all the time.
I imagine that this process might help also just to be aware of, the daily struggle. And I can tell the way you speak about all those stages that you had this
Amen.
self-reflection. Like, you are not just like walking in the dark without any self-awareness. You know what you've been through, and I feel like you are just realistic and honest about this experience,
It's
honest towards
yes.
yourself too. Like,
Yes, and I think that that's a really important thing. I think even before you leave, one of the things that I was reflecting on some of the questions we had talked about was I think one of the most important parts of this, especially pre-move, is get really, really honest with yourself about what you are capable of currently and what you feel like you could be capable of, because this journey is not just a physical journey in any way, shape, or form, at least not for me. I can't speak to anybody else, but this has been as much a growth, like a commitment to growth. Like you can't move to another country, another culture, another language without really allowing yourself to grow into that. And it also means leaving behind a person, like we had mentioned when we talked the other day. I am not the same person that I was even 3 months ago. And so that's exciting and new and fun, but it also means that I'm leaving a part of me behind.
exactly.
And people back home are like the relationships change. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just that was one thing I wasn't really prepared for at all. And I thought I was pretty prepared for all the ups and downs, but I
But
wasn't
maybe you had an intuition that would happen,
yes.
that you were going, because when you were about to take this plunge, I guess you were attracted by the change, like, because it's an evolution in the end.
Yes. And I think for some people, like your family members or friends, close friends, they may feel a little abandoned by you. They may not understand why you need to do this. They may not understand this desire. And then it makes them sometimes question themselves like, well, what's wrong with life here? Like, why do you feel like you need to get away? So there's a lot of dynamics that are just kind of under the surface that I think are important to be aware of and to examine. And I know that I'm working a lot harder to keep those relationships going than I thought I would have to. But, there may be some relationships that end up having to be let go of, or the dynamic is going to change. And I think that's something to be prepared for in as much as you can. And so that's something that really hadn't occurred to me, because now I'm not just, the person who lives down the street, or the family member who's going to show up for so and so's birthday. I'm now living in another country, and it's going to take a much bigger effort to
Yeah.
maintain that contact.
How does that feel? I know that you only have been in this new apartment and you can a little bit relax. It's quite recent, but how does that feel to be a foreigner, not to know
Mm.
many people
Yeah.
in a foreign country? In terms of your identity, you mentioned that there is a little bit of a new you,
Yes.
but I imagine back in your country, as you mentioned, you are the fifth generation. Everyone knows your name, probably where you
Yeah.
live, and you are this specific person, and you built this identity for years. So to have now this space to be like wherever you want to be, do you feel that there is a new part of yourself and also because you are freshly retiree, so
Yes.
do you feel that there is something unexpected that's showing up, or?
Yeah, it's kind of a blank canvas, which I don't even remember the last time I felt like I could, construct myself in whatever way that I want to construct myself. Like, there were two things that I promised myself when I moved here. This is like I made a little agreement with myself, and like, what do I want to keep and what do I want to let go of? And the one thing that I wanted, well, first of all, I wanted to dress differently, because I feel like there's this term that we have called Costco chic. Like I bought my clothes at Costco. Like, I had my vest and like it was very comfortable, so it was like, oh, I have my Costco chic, and I really want to dress differently. So that was a big thing for me. It's like, okay, I'm going to move to France. I'm going to get adventurous. I bought a couple of linen dresses that, it's like, that's different than jeans.
So you had to let go of a lot of your clothes, I imagine, well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not missing them at all. So my first promise to myself was that I was going to dress differently, like adventure out and do things a little bit, like wear bright colors and
nice. I like your shirt.
Thank you.
Chemise.
So the other thing was a little deeper. Was I promised myself that I would be less of a people pleaser and more true to myself. That's been really hard. I mean, that's been really, really hard. Like, I don't want to I'm very conscious of having a more, with a big move like this, because we're retired, the retirement part of it is it's a big part of my consciousness about how much time do I have left. And I haven't really framed it in that way before, but I do now. Like, is it 20 years, 30 years, 15? Like, we don't know. But I'm in my go-go years right now still. The slow go will come, and then the no-go will come. But right now, we're in our go-go years, and I really want to have quality relationships, not quantity of relationships. And so I promised myself, dress differently and be much more intentional with your relationships with people, and don't spend time around people that drain me, that drag me down, that aren't receptive to the kind of level of relationship that I'm looking for. Honesty, transparency. I don't play games. I don't want drama. I left all of that behind in the United States. So that's,
I like that.
I mean, but that was a big decision. And I've already had one circumstance where I've had to be really honest with somebody that wasn't healthy for me to be around. And it was painful. It was really hard. But at the end of the day, it's what I had to do. And that standing up for myself was very, very difficult. But I thought, life is too short now to be around people that are going to bring drama, or that are going to bring, I don't need that. I don't want that. I want my relationships to be really clean and honest and uplifting and friendly and positive, right?
And that's what you can do when you start from zero. You can just create the life you want. And I really like that. It's true that to stop working, I mean, you still work, but another kind of work. But to stop working, it's basically when you think of life as a cyclical, of something cyclical, you are in a new cycle. And I like that you seem to have already like a kind of had put some thought in terms of what you want, the foundation of this cycle. And it seems that it's a good fit with this life abroad in France. And that you are going to already, like, you dress differently. And also from what you said, I sense that it's a little bit like you've been a mom, you've been a hard worker, and now it's a bit like, now it's time to think of you, of enjoying your time with your husband, not to please people, but like just to attract the kind of people you can be fully honest and your true self. And I just think it's really exciting, because I see that some people retire and they identify with their work, and suddenly they have a big loss, and they feel a little bit almost victim of they don't feel like fully actor of their retirement. And you just decide to just like be brave and just like live your retirement with this kind of youth spirit and like curiosity. And that's what I think it's really amazing to have this chat with you, and if that can inspire people to take this leap.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've been through the hard patch, but like I can feel that it's going to get easier and easier now.
Well, when you get accustomed to that, thank you for that. I mean, it's no easy thing. And to anybody who's made this journey, and you've made this journey as well, like anybody who decides to uproot their lives and take that chance, you're a courageous person just by nature. That makes you a courageous person. And when you hear that voice and you know it's leading you in that direction, it's almost impossible. Like I kept thinking, what if I don't do this? As we were talking about earlier, I could stay here and that would be okay. But I would always have that nagging in the back of my head. And I don't want to be lying on my deathbed saying, why didn't I do that? Why didn't I take that chance? So yeah, I mean, it does change you. I mean, there's no question. So the expectation that you can be the same person and move to another country, I just don't think that's realistic. But you have to really
Yeah.
put some thought into how you want to create that. What's important to you? Like for me, the most important thing for me in this next chapter is to live in my integrity. And it's what I tell my kids all the time when they struggle with decisions about whether it's relationships or work or whatever. It's like when you come from a place of integrity, you're always going to do the right thing. It may not be easy, but it's important. And so I think coming here, we're studying French. We want to learn the language. I want to be
Yeah, I wanted to finish
yeah.
our chat about French language. I was like, okay, it's already been an hour, but I just at least want to mention that. So can you just say a word about the language and like how do you feel on a day-to-day basis, like with, like.
Well, first of all, I will say the French are one of the most forgiving people I've ever seen. Like I've had nothing but great interactions with, well, one person at IKEA the other day was not very friendly, but beyond that, like
Okay.
I think she was just having a bad day. But the French people have been very, very kind with my very butchered French. I studied, I use the term lightly because I did Duolingo for a year. And for anybody who's thinking about moving to France, I would say do yourself a favor, not just out of respect for this country, but do yourself a favor and start getting serious, whether you take a class at a JC or, an online class or a class
What's
with
the
you.
JC?
Oh, a junior college.
Okay.
Sometimes they're more affordable than a 4-year college. I know you're a French teacher as well. I wish I had known you before, but I know you now.
Well, since Christy brought up the challenge of the language, and as a professional French teacher, I want to show you a resource that can make a real difference. It's my website, it's called Feel Good French, and I've created a blog tailored specifically for retirees, for expats who move to France, with languages tips and also cultural tips about moving to France. In addition to the blog, I currently offer personalized French coaching, and there are limited spaces available for one-to-one sessions designed for retirees who want clarity and progress without overwhelm. And these days there is a special offer: 2 participants, 1 screen, 1 price. All the details will be right below.
Really get serious. Like Duolingo is great, but it's never going to get you to the level where like we can't get into Alliance Française to get really serious because we're not at that level yet. So we found a class online before I met you, and it's been great. There's about 6 of us with an instructor, and it's very beginning. And it started with the alphabet. Like the alphabet is different than American alphabet, and you really have to have those fundamentals. But we're having fun. Like yesterday, we went to the post office. I needed stamps for postcards. And so all the way there, I was practicing in my head how I was going to ask for my stamps. And I got there and I kind of blah, blah, blah. And she was very kind and we did some sign language and I was able to get that done. But I find that when I say to people like, je parle un peu français, pas très bien, like I speak a little French and not very well.
They appreciate the effort.
They
appreciate
really
that you
appreciate it versus going in there and just starting to speak English, which I see a lot of people do. And once they do that, you kind of make a connection with them. And they're just, the French are really kind people. And it's like they want to help you. Once you make that effort, my experience, no matter where we are, and I always end up laughing, like they laugh and then I'll say, vous parlez l'anglais? And they'll say, on peut. And I'm like, on peut. And then we laugh.
Well, I think it's also a reflection of who you are, because maybe some other people won't have the same experience, but if you laugh and smile, maybe also people like it will be just a bit of a mirror effect too. But I think it's really refreshing to hear that, because I think French people have a bad reputation, maybe like
and I don't know
the
why.
Parisian vibe, because Paris is a very touristic place, like one of the most touristic places in the world.
Yes.
So I think maybe there is this pressure on the city, and that's why when you ask on the streets the address of a place, maybe the Parisians are a bit reluctant to answer to you and take the time.
Yeah,
maybe that's one of the explanations. But I think, French people usually suffer from a bad reputation. So thank you for
No,
demystifying that.
yes, we've had a great. I was looking for sugar in the market a couple of weeks ago, and I was getting frustrated because I just couldn't find it. And I just mustered up my courage, and I asked this woman, pardon, madame, je parle un peu français.
You have a really good accent, by the way.
Well, thank
Très
you.
bon accent.
Thank you. And then I just said, où est le sucre? And she looked at me and she got busy right away. She just started looking and looking and then she couldn't find it. So she enlisted some other woman and her daughter. And the next thing I know, I've got 3 people looking for the sugar for me and they didn't know me from Adam. And so I was kind of emotionally moved by that. It was like, it was so, like they didn't need to do that. They could have just walked away, but they didn't. And they waited until I figured out what I wanted. And it really moved me. And it was like, that's the kind of place I want to be. That's the kind of person I want to be to other people.
Wow. I like this
Yeah.
testimony.
So, I'm sure, like I said, we asked somebody the other day in IKEA if they spoke English, and the answer was nope. And they turned and they walked away. And I'm like, okay, message received. Not your job to speak English to me. But 99% of the time, I think you make a good point. It's all about the energy that you bring to the interaction. If you come in and you're kind of, cranky or whatever, or there's an expectation, that's going to impact the way that people receive you. So if you bring good, lighthearted energy and they know that you're trying, I can't wait to wake up one day, and I don't know if it's a year or 5 years or 10 years or ever, I can't wait to wake up one day and just laugh at how badly I speak French now and be in a place where I can say, remember when I could barely get this out of my mouth? Like, I really am anxious.
That's a good projection to have, like to
Yeah.
manifest also this
Yeah.
future you that's able to have conversation, like be fully fluent and
Yeah.
have a whole day in French, speak French with your husband.
Yes, exactly. And so we do a lot of that. Like we'll be walking down the street and, we're marching to the days of the week, or numbers are fascinating here. Like when you get up to like 80 and 90, how you say those numbers. So
And it's not the same in Belgium and in Switzerland.
really?
I don't know if you heard. Actually, it's more logical in Belgium and Switzerland
good.
because they give a real unit to 70 and to 90.
Yes.
They have a real unit over there, but not in France. It's a bit funny, like how
Well,
the
I'm not
number
great at
works.
math, and so for me to have to be adding like 4 20s plus a 10 plus a 7, like it's complicated. But I enjoy the challenge, and that's another thing. I really feel like trying to learn a new language at this age it's like learning a new exercise routine. Like it hurts your brain at first, but after a while, when you start to listen and hear, and then the words start popping up in somebody else's conversation, you'll go, oh, I know that word, I know that word, I know that word. And you can start to pull together what they might be saying. And it's slow.
And it's a favor that you give your brain because, we speak of dementia, and I think people say you have to do crossword every day, but
Yes.
learning a language for the
Yes.
memory is like the best you could do, really.
Yes. And for my husband, this is his 4th language. Like, so
Oh, wow.
for him, it's been really fascinating to watch how he's starting to make these connections in his brain and how he remembers things and how I remember things. Like it's really fascinating. And so those are the little things where we find joy in that because it's something new and we're learning and we're seeing a world with brand new eyes. And that, boy, I mean, how many opportunities do you get to do that? Especially like when you're a kid, if you just watch children playing, we were sitting at the beach and we watched this little girl and she had a stick. And I mean, she made an hour's worth of play out of that stick. And so for me, like, it's exciting to see that level of play. And so that's kind of how we look at this now that we're over some of the hard stuff. And I know there will be more hard stuff. And we got to apply for our carte vitale. That's next week. I'm not dealing
Carte
with it.
vitale is this card that you need to go to the doctor. Is this green card, not the green card to work in the US, another green
It's
card.
the medical card. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there are, and we'll have to start working on our renewal at some point. But for now, we're just sort of looking at this as, we've gotten over a few hurdles and we're settled and it was worth it. And I would do it again. I would probably prepare differently knowing now what I know, just some of the things that we've talked about. But I have no regrets, and there has not been one moment where I felt like I what did I do? Why did I do this? There have been moments where I have felt I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I'm strong enough to do this. I don't know if I'm brave enough to continue, but I've never felt, not once, oh, I wish I were home. I wish. Now,
Oh,
when it's cold and rainy and I'm on a bus, do I wish I had my car with my heated seats? Yes, I admit to that. But I've not 1 minute.
well, it's not raining a lot in Nice, so that's okay.
We had quite a
Yeah?
bit of rain here. Yeah, this
Really?
winter. Yeah, I was surprised. I was surprised, but who cares? Like it's, that's and that's another thing I see a lot of people on the Facebook pages. It's like, here's my list of everything that I want. I want 2,000 hours of sun. I want, minimal rain, no wind, but it's like, there's no place on the planet that's going to give you everything. You have to have some level of willingness to take what you get. But at the end of the day, it's just, I don't question what we did. I have no regrets. Do I miss certain things? I do. But is it enough for me to say I want to go back? No. And at one point at my lowest, and I was crying, and my husband was trying to comfort me. He's like, "Do you want to go home?" And I was like, "No, of course I don't want to go home." So it's, you take the good with the bad, and it's all part of the adventure. And just keep your mental health clear and do what you got to do to get through the lows, and know that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So when you're this high, you're going to be low, and then when that's going to keep happening.
Exactly. Thank you so much for your words. I'm moved by all you say, and I really feel that it's going to inspire people to follow a little bit your step. And I like the fact that you are really honest and positive, because I think you acknowledge all the up and downs and the hardship of this move, but at the same time it's very positive, as you say, because you don't regret and you just fully embrace this experience. And I like that. I can tell that it's from what I gather, it's you have to let go, and sometimes I don't know, I feel like myself as well, sometimes I feel that I'm a bit rigid and I want to control, and I think you have to just let go of that and just kind of go with the flow, and just leave this space of rigidity to go towards more as you said, it's raining, you're on the bus, it's all right. In the end, it's just you just have to see things differently and take the good, and and
exactly,
it's a learning process. You just learn how to embrace this life and whatever comes, and
have faith. Just whatever that looks like for you, just have faith that there's I'll leave you with this, just one of my favorite quotes from a Beatles song, the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love, which is, there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be.
Oh, and I like it.
I have to remind myself of that sometimes, even when it's dark and it's scary. There's nowhere I can be that isn't where I'm meant to be. And then it's up to us to take from that the lessons that we need to take, and be mindful of that.
Wow. Bravo. Well, there is also another Beatles song to practice French, Michel.
Ah, oui.
If you
I have to kind of dissect that one and work out the...
It's just a few lines, I think. Michel, ma belle, sont des mots, the words, qui vont bien ensemble. But just after, he gives the translation, I think.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to that. So, yeah. Yay, Beatles.
You can hear the British accent. It's quite cute. I like this one too.
Yeah.
Well, okay, that was your finishing line. And do you want to add one more thing, if you have to give an advice for the people who were like you back in the US or Australia or the UK, and they were in between this fear and desire, and they were a little bit indecisive about taking the leap? Would you like to just say something to them?
Yeah, I would say trust your intuition. If you feel a strong calling to do something like this, to make a move, whether it's France or wherever, don't discard that. Don't just shove that into a drawer, because what I find is what's meant for you will find you. And it may not be the right time, but if it's something that's important to you, it's going to keep popping up and it's going to keep coming back to you as something that you might want to do. And I would say be really honest with yourself. Stay in touch with yourself with what's important. But if you're feeling called to do something like this, there's a reason you're feeling called to do it. So keep getting resourceful. If it's answers that you need, ask the questions, get the answers. YouTube is a great place for resources. Facebook is a great place for resources. Keep drilling down and until you find the answer for yourself. Not everybody wants this for themselves, but the people who do, if you're being called, I just really think you have to listen to that. And the other thing I would say is you can do this. Just be prepared to grow. Be prepared for expansive growth. And if that's something that's appealing to you, this is a great way to do it, because you're pulling yourself out of your comfort zone and throwing you somewhere else, but in a place where, like in France, for example, the people are kind, the environment is strong and healthy, and it's going to be different, but it's going to challenge you to do things differently. And I think that kind of growth is really, really healthy and really, really important, because for me, the opposite of that is just stagnation. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to, whatever reason, I just didn't want to stagnate. And no disrespect to people who like their comfort zone. I understand that. I just felt like it was something that I needed to do. So if you're being pulled in that direction, really explore that, journal, talk to people, meditate, whatever works for you, but don't be afraid to make the leap, because I will say it's different, but we still eat food every day. We still breathe air every day. We still drink water and really good wine every day. Like it's different, but it's not awful. Like, it's cool. It's just different. So yeah, I would say go for it.
Merci beaucoup, Christy. I'm really delighted by this talk, and I'm sure that the people who are going to listen to us will feel the same. Thank you so much for sharing with all your heart this experience. And probably I will interview you later, maybe to see how you settled in your next dreamy future place where you are going to settle down. That would be really interesting to see the evolution later on. And thank you to be my first person that I interview for this series of podcasts.
Merci.
And bonne journée.
Bonne journée. Au revoir.
À bientôt, Christy.
À bientôt.
Merci beaucoup, Christy, and thank you for listening till the end to you. And next week, we are going to host Kasha and Kelly, an amazing couple that lives 6 months in the US and 6 months in France. I hope they inspire you, so subscribe. That will give me a smile and that will make you able to follow the next chapter. Au revoir, à bientôt.